Back to Canberra now, and the Manager of Opposition Business, Paul Fletcher, joins me live in the studio. We don't really have to guess where you're going to go in question time this afternoon. It's back on the detainee question, and the Immigration Minister, Andrew Giles, who was on this program earlier, he's adamant. He is cancelling visas, he's overturning decisions made by the tribunal, and he's getting on with the job.
Well, Kieran, we have been focusing on this question time on Tuesday and Wednesday, and yes, again, we'll be asking questions about it today because we have a truly bizarre situation where a minister issued this now notorious Direction 99, which made it very clear to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal that when it was dealing with appeals from visas being revoked, that it had to take into account additional factors that it previously did not have to give the same weight to, such as length of connection with Australia. The result of that has demonstrably been that many criminals who would previously have been deported from Australia were not deported. We now know that the minister was given advice to that effect by his own department. That's emerged in estimates. This is a minister who is clearly not up to the job, and that is why it's utterly appropriate that we're using question time to focus on his failings, and critically his failings and those of the Prime Minister to keep Australians safe.
Well, he says that the advice from the department, the advice prior to this direction being implemented, was that it wouldn't be counterproductive in terms of some of those high-risk detainees where he wanted people deported, that it wouldn't see those overturned.
Look, he's clearly casting around looking for any possible excuse. He gave a direction that the Administrative Appeals Tribunal is required to follow, and they have diligently followed it, and they have been clear. This has been a significant factor in decisions, and yet he's now been going around saying, they haven't made common sense decisions. He made a direction, they followed it, and of course he made that direction following the Prime Minister meeting with then New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern shortly after the election. She pressed him on this point. The Coalition never yielded on this point, but she pressed him. She pressed Anthony Albanese, and as a consequence of that, the Australian government, the Albanese government, took a decision to change the policy, which has demonstrably led to Australians being less safe.
Do you think that the opposition should also be turning its attention to the inflation question? Because that's obviously, if there are rate rises, as some economists think there should be over coming months, that would dwarf everything else as a political issue. So why don't you head there in question time?
There's no doubt that inflation is a very important issue. The numbers that came out yesterday were the core inflation rate of 4.1%, core inflation being what the RBA tracks most closely, makes it clear that the Panglossian statements from the Treasurer and his department forecasting a reduction in inflation and in due course in interest rates, I'm sorry for them, but reality is not conforming to their models. What we are seeing is that inflation is staying stubbornly high. Now, we've been warning about this for months. Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor has been banging the drum on this. We warned against...
But in question time, you've gone on the detainee issue, Giles, uniformly this week. Why not also look to that other massive issue for most households?
What we seek to do in question time is address the range of issues that are rightly before the Parliament. And every day you can make the case that there's a lot of other things that could also have rightly been asked about. Inflation is certainly a very significant issue. We are continuing to press that point. And we do make the point that the budget that was brought down, we warned against a budget that would fuel inflation. We said the budget needed to focus on fighting inflation. They brought down a budget that has fuelled inflation. And what we now know from the statistics that came out yesterday is that inflation appears to be stuck. It's not moving down. And it's against that backdrop that the decisions taken in the budget will now feed through to the economy. That is very troubling.
Manager of Opposition Business, Paul Fletcher, thanks. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Gary.